My mother slid my life insurance paperwork across the kitchen table and told my brother it should help him get back on his feet. The problem was that I was still alive. I was standing in the doorway of my parents' kitchen in Dayton, Ohio, on a Sunday afternoon in November, still in my coat because I had only just arrived, and I watched my mother push a manila folder across that old wooden table, the same table I had eaten breakfast at for 18 years, the same table that still had the burn mark from a casserole dish my mother set down too fast in 1987. And I watched my brother Curtis open it and look at the contents with the particular expression of a man who has been expecting something and is relieved it has finally shown up. The folder contained the summary documents from my life insurance policy. My policy. The one I had taken out in 2009 after my cancer diagnosis, after the surgery, after the months of treatment during which I had learned what it meant to genuinely not know whether you would be alive at Christmas. I had taken out that policy because I have a daughter and she has 2 children, and I had made a decision in a hospital room in 2009 that whatever else happened, the people who depended on me would be taken care of. Curtis had not been at the hospital in 2009. He had sent a card. It had a lighthouse on it. If you've ever been punished your whole life for being the responsible one, while someone else got rewarded for every mess they made, subscribe to this channel right now. Because people our age know this pain in our bones. We know what it costs to be the one who never asks for anything. We know what it means to watch the family resources flow in one direction, year after year, and to tell ourselves that's just how families work. Subscribe and stay with me because what happened in that kitchen is just the beginning. I want to tell you about Curtis before I tell you what happened next. Not to be unkind, to be accurate, because the story doesn't make sense without the full picture. Curtis is 56 years old. He has had 3 businesses that each ended with money owed to people outside the family. 2 vehicles repossessed. He borrowed $11,000 from my father in 2014 for a reason never clearly stated and never repaid. He borrowed $4,000 from me in 2018 for what he called a bridge situation, and when I asked about repayment 8 months later, he said he didn't remember us discussing terms, which was the moment I understood the conversation about repayment had been entirely one-sided. My parents have always known all of this, and they have always, with the patient loyalty of people who have decided one child is simply more in need, treated Curtis's disasters as weather that would pass, his needs as urgent, and my stability as proof that I required less consideration. I was the one who called every Sunday, drove 3 hours when my father had knee surgery, organized Christmas for 11 consecutive years, noticed when my mother's blood pressure medication needed refilling, remembered my parents' anniversary. And every single time I was described as the strong one, which I have come to understand is a family's way of saying, this one will absorb whatever we need her to, and she will not make it difficult. I stood in that doorway, and I looked at my brother holding my paperwork. My mother looked up at me. She didn't appear guilty. That was the part that cost me the most. Not the act, but the absence of any awareness that the act required guilt. She said, with the mild practicality of someone discussing a household chore, Curtis needs to understand the family's financial picture. We were just going over some things. I said, that's my policy. She said, well, you don't need all that money if something happens. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time someone in your family said something to you that was so wrong it took a moment before you could even respond? Drop it below. Because I stood in that doorway for a full 5 seconds before I could locate a single word. I sat down at the table. I was very calm in the way that you are calm when the shock of something is so complete that your emotions have not yet decided how to organize themselves. Curtis was not looking at me directly. He was looking at the folder in a way that reminded me of the way he used to look at things as a child when he had been caught doing something, and was hoping that if he didn't make eye contact the situation might resolve itself. I looked at the folder. I looked at my mother. I said, who authorized you to share my policy documents? She said they were family documents. I said they were not. I said my name was on the policy and my daughter's name was listed as beneficiary, and no other living member of this family had any legal claim to that policy or the information in it. My father, from the recliner in the next room where he'd been watching the football pregame, called out, Lorraine, let's not make this a whole thing. There is a specific feeling that comes from being told not to make something a whole thing, when the thing being dismissed is your entire financial future and the safety net you built for your grandchildren during the worst year of your life. I've spent 61 years learning to manage that feeling. That Sunday, I decided I was done managing it. I took the folder off the table. I put it in my bag. I stood up and I put my coat back on and I said goodbye to my mother and I walked to my car. And what happened later that night at my front door was the first time in my life I saw my brother Curtis genuinely afraid. Stay with me, because this is the part I've been waiting to tell you. I called my attorney from the car before I'd left my parents' street. Her name is Patricia, and she has handled my affairs for 12 years. She listened the way she does when she has already understood the problem and is thinking about the solution. She said she'd have documents ready in the morning, that I should change the policy account password immediately, and that I should document everything I could remember. Who said what was in the folder, the exact words. I drove home. I changed the password. I sent Patricia a written summary of the conversation with timestamps. Then I called the insurance company and requested a full access review and a notation on the file that no third-party inquiries were to be honored without written authorization from me directly. The representative I spoke to was professional and thorough and said everything would be in place within 24 hours. Then I made myself a cup of tea, and I sat in my living room with the rain coming down outside the window and the news playing softly on the television, the way it does in Midwestern living rooms on Sunday evenings, and I thought about everything I knew about Curtis's financial situation that my parents either didn't know or had chosen not to know. The gambling debts I was most certain about. I had seen a collection agency letter at my parents' house 2 years prior, read enough of it to know the amount was significant and that it was not the first. A cousin had also mentioned, without quite meaning to, some questions around a 2021 real estate deal that hadn't gone the way Curtis represented it to investors. I didn't know all the details. I knew enough. My parents knew none of this, or had decided not to. When I had once tried to raise a concern about Curtis, my mother said I was being judgmental, and my father changed the subject. The conversation ended the way those conversations always ended, with me understanding that protecting Curtis from consequences was the family's primary principle, and that my role was to accommodate that, quietly, without complaint. If you enjoy stories where the quiet person finally stops absorbing what the family throws at her, subscribe right now. And share this with someone you know who's spent their whole life being the strong one. Because too many good people have spent decades being emotionally used, and they deserve to hear that it doesn't have to stay that way. Curtis knocked on my door at 9:47 that night. I heard his car slow on the street 11 minutes before that, and I had thought, there it is. The desperation had arrived faster than I expected. I know the time because I had looked at the clock 11 minutes earlier when I heard a car slow down on my street, and I had thought, there it is. I had not known it would be him specifically. I had known that once the access attempt failed, once the insurance company's new restrictions prevented whatever Curtis had been planning to do with the information my mother had given him, he would run out of options quickly and arrive somewhere desperate. I had simply expected it to take longer than 4 hours. He was not wearing a coat, which was strange for November in Ohio. He looked like a man who had left somewhere in a hurry and had not stopped to collect himself. His eyes were red in the way of someone who has been crying or close to it, and his voice when he spoke had a quality I did not recognize immediately and then did. It was the quality of someone who is frightened. Genuinely frightened, not performing. He said he needed to talk to me. I let him in. I did not offer him anything. I sat down in my chair, and I waited. He talked for about 15 minutes. About how hard things had been, creditors, more than I had known about, a situation with a former business partner that had a legal component. He said he'd just needed a little time, a little help. That he wasn't a bad person. That he had never meant to hurt anyone. He did not, in the 15 minutes he talked, say that he was sorry for sitting at my parents' kitchen table with my life insurance documents, while my mother suggested that I wouldn't need the money anyway. When he finished, I said, very quietly, "You didn't come here because you love me. You came because the money disappeared." He opened his mouth. He closed it. He looked at me for a moment with an expression I had never seen from him before, something that was not quite shame, but was adjacent to it. Something that knew. I said, "Go home, Curtis." He went. He didn't fight me on it. I think he understood, in whatever part of him was capable of understanding things, that the era of me being the place he could come to when other options ran out was over. Not because I had declared it dramatically. Because the access was locked and the attorney was involved, and there was simply nothing here for him to take. My parents called the next morning. My mother said I had hurt Curtis deeply. My father said the family needed to stay together. I said, gently and clearly, that I loved them and would not be making my financial life available to Curtis under any circumstances, and that what they had done had crossed a line I could not let go uncrossed. My mother said I was being dramatic. I said goodbye and ended the call. I sit most evenings now with tea and the quiet of a house where the boundaries are finally solid. There is relief in it. There is also sadness because the family I hoped for and the family I actually have are not the same thing, and knowing that clearly is different from just suspecting it. But I am 61 years old and I survived cancer, and I built a policy to protect my daughter and her children, and that policy is intact and properly documented and protected, and it will do exactly what I intended it to do. My brother fell to his knees that night. But the truth is, I'd been carrying him on my back for 30 years. And the night I finally set him down was the night I could breathe again. If this story touched your heart tonight, subscribe and come back tomorrow. Because a lot of us spent years confusing sacrifice with love. And the day you finally understand the difference is the day your real life begins.